Welcome to Outdoor Adventures with Jayson. Each week I bring the world of hunting, fishing, and conservation to you. From the great hunting and fishing opportunities found in the Americas to the dream safaris located on the dark continent and beyond. I'll introduce you to those who are already out in the field living every outdoor enthusiast's dream, as well as outfitters and gear manufacturers that can make those dreams your reality. Kill and Sticks arrows are for the serious hunter, a company that understands the needs of the outdoorsman and provides 5 different styles of carbon fiber arrows, ranging from hunting to tournament arrows. If you want premium carbon fiber arrows, go to Kill and Sticks, KILLNSTIX.com to review their carbon arrows. For listeners of the Outdoor Adventures with Jayson show, use promo code OUTDOORS to get 10% off your first order. Kill and Sticks, where the blood trail begins. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Outdoor Adventures with Jayson. I'm really excited today. I've got Mark Martin on, who's a professional walleye fisherman. Mark, how are you?
I'm excellent. I just got back from over in Minnesota at Rogers, Minnesota at Clam, and then came back through the UP, did a little lake trout fishing in the Keweenaw here yesterday, and visited some friends, and so now I got a lot of sit behind the computer work and mail to take care of. So it's always something, and then get ready to take off here again, promoting fishing, however and wherever I can.
For the listeners, I'm going to give you Mark's background, and this is really amazing. Mark's been making a living for, 39 plus years in the fishing tournaments, walleye tournaments, writing, guest hosting, doing radio and TV spots, seminars, fishing schools, and writing about fishing. He's the only person to qualify for every professional walleye tournament championship and also make the championships in a number of other tournaments that are running, including the Masters Walleye Circuit and the Michigan Walleye Tour. And he's had, Mark, 3 best-selling books, a video on walleye fishing. He fished well over 300 plus walleye tournaments with 5 wins and more than 40 top 10 finishes. So if I want to talk to somebody about walleye fishing, you're the man to do it. So I welcome you again to the show.
Well, thank you very much, Jayson. I've put in my time, I guess, and I enjoy sharing my time that I've put in and try to help people not make as many mistakes as I have, so they are more successful in the limited time they got to be out there on the water trying to catch fish, So, like I say, the only way you can get good is to get yourself out there and make mistakes. And if you're not making mistakes, you're not learning. And it's funny when people say stuff to me, like, well, what else is there to learn about walleye fishing? They learn a few different things, and they think that's the only way you can do it, or they tell me they know everything about it, and I go, well, I guess I'm just wasting my time talking to you. I think in my head, I guess I got to walk this way. So, to me, the only time I'm not going to learn anything is when I pass away and they put me in the ground, and hopefully during my time here I can make somebody's life happy and pass the knowledge that I have attained along the line to everybody that either has read my books, listened to me on podcasts, listened to me radio and TV, and made a little gave them a little bit of knowledge so they can catch one more fish tomorrow.
Well, and that's the great part is I grew up in Michigan, and I grew up on the east side of the state, so opposite from where you're at, and we fished the St. Clair River, Lake Huron, and as a kid, when you were told you were going to go walleye fishing, that was a big excitement, and sometimes we just fished them from the banks there in the St. Clair River using nightcrawler harnesses. So, you hear somebody talking about one of your major backers, Lund boats. That was always the boat that everybody wanted, was a Lund, and still does, because they're just a quality product. Getting your books, getting your video, it's all been fantastic to learn from you.
Well, thank you very much, Jayson. I appreciate that. I definitely believe in my Lund boats. I tell people when I see them at sport shows and I'm in a Lund booth of somebody, I always tell them it's your insurance policy, because it will get you out of something that you didn't intend to get yourself into. And I'll swear by it, because I've been in some of the worst conditions in my Lund boat, conditions most people will never ever see, but that Lund got me back safe and sound every time.
Oh, and yeah, they're known for being a boat that can tackle that Great Lakes water with just ease.
Yeah, it's been developed. They listen to all their Lund pros and try to incorporate that little bit of knowledge that each one of us has into each and every Lund, and by listening to us, they get a greater boat all the time.
Well, Mark, did you grow up fishing? I mean, kind of a dumb question for anybody in the Great Lakes area, but was this something that was passed on from your parents to you?
Well, yeah. I would think, I got to give my grandpa and dad a lot of credit for taking me, in my early years and instilling fishing into my blood, to create the monster that I am. I guess that I can't get enough fishing of. It doesn't matter if it's walleye or whatever. As long as I'm fishing, I'm happy, and if I'm talking about it, I'm happy. I always had that, once my dad and grandpa started showing me and taking me on varieties of different kinds of waters and variety of different kinds of fish. Walleye was their favorite, so it became my favorite, and I learned more, I learned about a lot of species of fish, but I learned one thing is that all those techniques I'll work on all the other fish species out there will work on walleyes. They're a fish that of many different bodies of water, many different methods of fishing. Salmon methods can take them, dipsy divers, downriggers, lead core. They can take walleyes. You can take your bobbers for bluegills or slip bobbers and put leeches and little jigs on them and catch walleyes. You can take crankbaits that you'd cast for bass and pike and everything and catch walleyes on. Crawler harness. I mean, every method out there that is strictly what you feel is for one species of fish relate back in some way or manner or fashion to being able to have a technique at a certain time of year to catch a walleye. So mastering all that aspects of all these other fish allow you to catch more walleye. And once you, if you go to try to catch walleye, you're going to catch all the other fish because you're doing the technique right to catch any other species that may be around those walleyes at the time. So don't be surprised if you're intended to catch walleye with that bottom bouncer and spinner, because that's what you read in the latest article I wrote, or you read it in my book, or you read it in somebody else's article or book, or seen it on TV. Don't be surprised if you pull a northern pike out, or you get a muskie, or you get a sheephead, or perch, bass, or bluegill. So, that's what I tell people. It's mastering the methods of all the species that allow you to get better at walleye.
Yeah, they're definitely a versatile fish, from types of equipment to use to location, from North Texas, where they have them where I'm at, all the way up to, to basically the tundra lines. There's walleye located, and in just general, a lot of times just great numbers. So fun fish,
right.
And when they hit, they can hammer it.
Yeah, and they taste good too.
Well, and that's the best part. So
and because of my grandpa and dad, showing me all these techniques, and the other thing is I didn't elaborate on is everybody thinks their walleye special. Like, you can only catch them on this in my lake. Well, they might not know the other methods to put on their lake to catch even more. And if I went down to, when I did go down to Texas before and catch them, I was using methods that I used right here on Muskegon Lake, and vice versa. Whatever little nuance was there in Texas on that reservoir, I brought it maybe over to the Mississippi River or to Fort Peck in Montana. But the other thing is growing up with my dad and grandpa, instilling it and I say I was probably, I was the excuse that they got to fish more, because they used me. But I don't care if you're going to use me for fishing, I guess. You use it to get out of the house, to get it out of the yard work. Mark's got to go fishing. That's what they always used to say. My grandpa would tell me to go in and tell Grandma that you need to go fishing because he was doing the yard. And I said, well, Grandpa, you got to mow the lawn. And you got to go fishing. I get it, Grandpa. Okay, and then we go fishing. So it was a fun thing. But I guess when I got to be about 5 years old, my dad asked me a question. He had a reel-to-reel tape system. He was asking my sister what she wanted to be or what she wanted to do, and both of us really. And she wanted to be a nurse or something like that. I got the DVD because I put it on that now. But he asked me, Mark, well, what are you going to want to do? He goes, I says, well, I want to be a fisherman, Dad. He goes, well, you can't make a living doing that, Mark. He said, let me talk to your sister a little bit more. He come back and he said, you decided what you wanted to be now. And I said, a fisherman. He goes, maybe a doctor, lawyer, dentist, fireman, policeman, lawyer. He just went through the whole gauntlet. Let me keep talking to your sister while you're thinking of that. He come back again. I said, I want to be a fisherman. And he goes, man, he says, you just got to understand that you can't make a living doing this, Mark. Back then in them days, you couldn't make a living. There wasn't no guides really to speak of. And there was no, nobody knew how to promote fishing to make a living at it, for one thing. So, he kind of just let it drop. And then when I won the 1990 Professional Walleye Trail, the first championship, I won it, and I came home, and my dad and Ma wanted me to come over for supper along with my wife, and said, oh, let's sit down. And I seen this reel-to-reel tape sitting there behind my dad, and the old one that I seen all the years. My dad had to blow the dust off it, I think, and it's sitting there. I'm like, what has he got that out here for? And so he opens the top on it and starts it up. And he goes, I just want you to listen to this. As soon as he started playing it all flashed back at me that 5-year-old day. And I just smiled. My wife's listening to it because I know what it's going to be, and she's like laughing and, thought that was really funny. And when it was all over with, my dad shut it off, closed the top, looked right at me, and he goes, Mark, he says, maybe I was wrong. I mean, for your dad to tell you that, now you're pushing into your 30s almost, and your dad 20-some years went by, and he never forgot that reel-to-reel tape himself. And he remembered me telling him that, but he also knew how much I liked fishing, and he probably liked it just as much as I did and probably wanted to do what I did, but there wasn't no opportunity back then. But I made my own opportunity, and that's what I tell kids nowadays. I said, when I go to career day at schools, I'm the professional athlete. I said, don't let anybody ever tell you can't do anything. You live in America. You can be anybody, anything you want to be, and remember that.
Mark, when people are looking at becoming a professional fisherman, you did an interview a number of years ago and gave some four really key points. And I think this is really important for people to listen to because this is a gentleman that's had over $400,000 in tournament earnings. Not that you're going to step out and do this, but you're getting an absolute top-notch pro giving you some great tips. And Mark, you said find a niche and own it. Find a mentor, adjust your business model as need be, and then most importantly, I think here is pass it on. Right, exactly.
And that's what I still believe today, and that's kind of basically, my grandpa, like I was saying, my grandpa and dad got me into it, and then I had to go earn a living. I had to punch a clock. I had to go, and make some real money, because I didn't know how to become just a fisherman that made money. And then as I grew up, I worked at a bait shop, and I became the kid at the bait shop that knew a lot about fishing. And so I had a lot of adults coming in and asking me, and I learned from them. They learned from me. And then they kept me into fishing. And then I went and worked in the shops and sweated and was a welder, tool and die, and kept my day job. But then I was getting laid off all the time, and finally I realized a time came, because more and more people knew I got older, that I caught lots of big walleyes at night. I mean, that was, and so, but I wouldn't take nobody out, because I knew I had to have a captain's license, period, to make money. That's where it started. And I didn't want to do it under the table, didn't want to break the law. And so I just wouldn't do it. But I would go fishing and take my friends, and word of mouth, I was kind of like that. I could pull a rabbit out of a hat, because walleye were very hard to catch, and I didn't have no problem at doing it, because I practiced for all these years since I've been a little kid. And so I got my captain's license while I was getting laid on and off, or working and not working, and collecting unemployment. I got my captain's license. The very first time I went to take it, I passed it. I studied on my own. I didn't go to any classes. It took me about 4 or 5 months before I was confident enough that I could answer the questions I didn't know what they were. I just knew a lot of things that I read, and they told me to read and stuff. So I studied and went in. I passed it the first time, and so now I started to take people out and catch fish, and I knew I didn't have the money to advertise, but I knew now I've taken out the majority of people that wanted me to take them out. They are like ecstatic. They kept coming back, but, if I'm going to make a living at this, you need to do it every day, so I'm working, I'd go back to work, and then I'd be off again. So when I was off, I'd ply the trade. So I involved Michigan Outdoors Television, Fred Trost. I mean, I watched the show just like everybody. Michigan Outdoors was a weekly outdoor TV program.
Oh, yeah.
That was the standard. Everybody watched it from Morton F. to Fred Trost, to present day Jimmy Gritzinger right now. I seen what they were showing, and it always amazed me that they'd catch these small little walleyes, if they even caught one. They'd say they're going, and if they caught one, it was a major success. And most of the ones they were always showing on TV were what I would feel they were illegal to barely legal, and I'm like, really?
They were
these
throwbacks.
People, they're excited. Yeah, they were excited about this. But they were showing people how to catch them. I went in. I think I knew how to get some attention. Anyhow, then I knew I needed to get attention in order to grow my business. So I entered one of my muskie that I caught was a master angler. I entered one of my walleye, which wasn't that hard to get one to be a master angler. I only had to be 8 pounds back then. I caught them on a nightly basis if I wanted to. And so I entered them, and Fred Trost had every year, master angler program. They'd bring on, people that caught master angler fish and all like that, kind of like big buck night, So I went on that and brought in my fish, and they're kind of like, oh man, and on top of it, I'd register a lot more fish, that I didn't bring mounted. I'd bring, and they'd like, wow, you had that many master anglers this year of that? Yeah, that's not that hard. Well, after the show would be over, Bob Garner and I struck it up into a conversation. I says, you want to go catch some of these big ones like this, Bob? And he heard it all before. He was like, yeah, we'd like to go do that. And Fred's listening. He goes, yeah, you think you can do that? I said, I don't think I know I can do it. I was real confident and cocky. I was a young guy. I said, that's no big deal. I said, yeah, I can do it. And they go, well, you're on. And so they heard it all the time. Everybody says that kind of stuff, and they come, and it's a big flop. They never see any fruits from it. More often than not, it's like they're lucky to get a fish. They come with me, and Fred gets his limit, Bob gets his limit, everybody gets their limit. Nice big fish, and we got done. Bob and I are still good friends to this day. He pulls me over to the side and he says, I had my doubts. He said, I don't have my doubts anymore about you. He says, Mark, I'm going to tell you something. He says, if you can get Fred Trost 5 walleyes in one night, he caught by himself, you're the best fisherman I ever seen, because Fred's never caught his limit of anything yet. And Bob was and he was serious as serious. And, it was funny, and I started laughing, and I don't even know if Fred I'm sure Bob told him, that was a standing joke or something, but it was funny to me. And when they aired that thing, and they also did Lansing Sports Show, but they are kind of like the head kingpins of Michigan Outdoors with it. They said, why don't you come down to that, and maybe you can book some trips out of this. Well, when that show hit the airwaves and I was showing them kind of fish and Fred was catching them, I was solidly booked the rest of the year as much as I wanted to fish. And it was like, man, I don't have to worry about work again. But I kept working. Because I wanted things in my life, and one job I might as well burn candles at as many ends that I can burn when you're young. I heard that, and it stuck in my head, and I said, I'm just going to keep working when I can and do my guiding all the time. And so I went into that mode of working and guiding. So when I did work, I go to work at, get up at 2, be to work by 3, be out of work by 11, pick my customers up at midnight, be off the water by 6, 7 o'clock, go to bed, get up at 2. And this way, I was doing it 7 days a week, but not work 5 days a week working, 7 days a week guiding. And this would go on and on for 9 years. And now I was kind of working all the time. There wasn't no getting laid off. I'd developed enough seniority, but also it got me notoriety with outdoor writers, other TV shows. This word spread far and wide. This guy can catch. I literally raised the bar on walleye in Michigan. The first year that I solidly took people out, I had 600 and some master anglers, which were over 8 pounds, because that's all it was back then. The next year, they said, enough's enough, Mark. Basically, we're going to raise it to 9 pounds.
Just to try to slow you down.
Just to slow me, yeah, right. If this one guy can make us look like fools, we're going to raise it to 9 pounds, and we'll see what he can do. I came back, and I had 400 and some more the next year. They went, well, he's not going to give up easy, I guess. Let's do it again. And the next year, they raised it to 10 pounds. And it kind of slowed me down. It got into the, 100 and some fish over 10 pounds. And they let it ride for a couple of years. And finally, they just couldn't, that was too much for them. They couldn't have somebody just doing that. So they raised it to present day 11 pounds. Well, that slowed me down quite a bit. But by that time, I'd showed enough people how to catch fish and where to catch them that they were actually catching them and they were keeping them. So now the fish quality of fishing demise was in effect, So, I kind of feel sorry in some ways for what I showed, my grandpa and dad taught me, and I taught everybody else, because they didn't know when to say when, where I grew up and wasn't able to ever keep my limit until, I got old enough to be on my own. They wouldn't let me when I fished. Well, there was no reason, you couldn't eat that many fish, period. But we'd keep one apiece every time we went out, and we'd eat it. My grandpa didn't like frozen fish, so that probably was the key thing.
Oh,
fresh fish only.
there you
So
go.
we weren't only allowed to keep one every night out, and we'd throw the rest back. So he was probably the early pioneer, catch and release and conservativity. And I came along, and I agree. I showed everybody how to do it at night, and and prey upon the hardest fish to catch in the daytime. I took its most vulnerable period at night and exploited it so people could catch all these big fish the way I had been catching them, not only just in Muskegon, but in any other lake that it got dark and there's walleyes, and it works everywhere. But now I had taken so many people on Muskegon Lake, the population started dwindling down, but that didn't mean White Lake to the north and Manistee Lake to the north of that and Spring Lake they all had fair populations. So I could go and fish on them if I wanted to for sure get somebody master angler tonight, if I didn't feel I had a good enough chance on Muskegon. But that's why the fishing has kind of tapered off, but it got my name out there, and I could be as busy as that today, taking people every day, but I had got lots of sponsors because of that. Without even fishing tournaments, Rapala was my first sponsor back in the early '80s, and they still are today. And so that's back then. They used to call you. Now you got to beat on all the sponsors' doors to get them. But anyhow, the seminar people, I was in demand to go speak at seminars and do seminars. I didn't know. I barely made it through school and I hated getting up in front of the class and doing book report. Now that I'm going to be talking to 10 people or 1,000, it was ridiculous. And I got baptism by fire. I got good at, talking and communicating and entertaining and teaching and in these seminars. And so I was all over. But I read too. I watched TV. And one guy that struck my interest was Gary Roach. I knew from reading and little bit I knew about him that he came up the hard way, and he is a worker, and he talked my language, when I read his articles. And then I knew he was going to be at a seminar with me in Detroit. And so I brought a portfolio of myself. He knew I was probably going to be there too. And so when we got there and met each other, we kind of went aside from everybody and just talked, and I said, here's a portfolio about me. And we went out to eat that night when we were both through, and we became like tight friends right at that moment, because he knew I wasn't a phony, and he was somebody I looked up to, a mentor. And that's what people need, is somebody like that. And he wanted me to join his group, and I said, and I knew he had some things that were not conducive to me as sponsors. I'd have to get rid of some of them. I said, well, let's just wait. And a couple of years later, I didn't, and all of a sudden the stars aligned a lot better. Things fell into place, either with him or with me. And I joined his team, which was the best thing that ever happened to me, really. And his good friend is Al Linder and the Infishman crew. And so now I became fast friends with all them people. And so now there's tournaments out there, and I wanted to see if I could test them. It was good enough for Gary just to have me there because I was intelligent enough and kept fish where I was, and he needed a promoter in Michigan. Well, now I wanted to fish tournaments, and I had a friend, and Gary, and he fished, and the tournaments were just coming around in '85, the Masters Walleye Circuits, which was called the Manufacturers Walleye Circuit back then. And I entered that, and I did really good, the first year, made it to the championship. Gary became more interested in me, and we teamed up to share knowledge at each and every event, so we both do better in our own rights of catching fish at tournaments. So, and then because I'm doing well and I made the championship that year, Gary made the championship, just snowballed, and then got to know Al Linder better, got to know, because he was friends with them, got over to Minnesota, got more exposure to all across the country doing seminars, because now they could see I could fish in the daytime. Well, this kid that fished at night caught big fish, not only can fish at night, but he can fish in the daytime. So that was kind of one of the things that interested everybody else. And so, and the rest is basically, I still kept my day job, because even though I was gaining sponsors, I still needed that day job. So now it went from doing your day job from 2 or 3, get up at 2, go to work at 3, get out of work at 11, meet my customers at midnight, and do that whole thing. Well, now I took all my vacation time, all my sick time, and started fishing the tournament circuit. So I could fish them all of them. So I fished all the tournament circuit. I used all of my sick days to do that. And then I, worked and guided at the same time. So I had 3 jobs going for 9 years. And somehow the good Lord kept me in good health and kept me going so that I never missed a tournament, never missed a day of work. And I never, missed a guide opportunity unless it was bad weather and I had to reschedule. So by doing all that, I was starting to realize my dreams and be able to build upon all that for what I am now. So. And then now I'm giving back too. I got pro staff people underneath me, just like Gary had pro staff people. And so now I try to help that new generation that's underneath me and give them a direction and get them working with the public, get them working with new outdoor writers and TV. And if it's for them and they like it, they can continue like I did. So I guess that's the long and short of it.
Well, as you've gone forward now, let's fast forward a little bit to today, because now you're into it. You're going hard. You eventually left your day job and went full time into the tournament and writing and everything else that's around the fishing. One thing I just want to touch upon is the Michigan Walleye Tour just wrapped up. And Mark, you work a lot with Lund Boats, who is a major sponsor of the Michigan Walleye Tour, where you fished this summer. How did that tour go overall? What were your thoughts on the tour overall?
The tour is great. Ernie Plant, he's on my pro staff also. He is the tournament director of the Michigan Walleye Tour. Does a fantastic job. He eliminates any gray areas that people try to. It's all black and white in his book, which it should be. And if people try to put a gray area in there, he pretty much lets it know, and there is no gray area. So if you want to do what I said you can't do and try to make it a gray area, we will deal with it when that time comes. So you be your own boss. I'm telling you not to do what I'm asking you, and if you want to pursue it. So he's that no-nonsense type of director that you need to make a professional circuit outstanding, and so overall, all the sites he chose, from the Detroit River to Detroit Lake Erie to Houghton Lake to Alpena, they were all good choices. They were all at good times of the year, and there was fish being caught at each and every one of them. And I know for a fact that circuit allows the grassroots people to get their feet wet and explore if they want to continue on to greater things as far as going to a bigger circuit, a more national circuit. But it gives them the feeling of competition, friendship, making friends, making acquaintances, and learning new techniques and methods and putting them to work on different bodies of water. Instead of your home body of water, the Michigan Walleye Tour allows you for very little money, especially if you fish with a friend, to split the expenses, whether it's food, lodging, and also the tournament expense, gas, to have an experience of tournament fishing and have a possibility to win some money and have the excitement and be like a bowling league that you're on, but you're on a fishing league with your friends. So I would persuade a lot of people to enter the Michigan Walleye Tour if you live in Michigan, or if you live in other states. There's, Nebraska has a walleye trail. There's all sorts of little walleye trails in every state now that people can take advantage of where they live to get involved in them and to further their knowledge of walleye fishing.
Well, Mark, and when you have somebody that comes on as a co-angler, since you're the captain of the boat, what do you want out of that co-angler? What's the best thing that somebody can do to step on that boat and help you and help themselves be successful?
Just to listen to me. Don't come in with your preconceived ideas of how you fish and how you would do things. Don't lose that kind of knowledge. But keep it to yourself. Pretend that you don't know anything, and just do what the captain of the boat or the pro asks you to do. And that not only allows you to probably be a little more successful, but allows you to maybe learn a new technique, but allows you not to butt heads with somebody and you don't start out a bad relationship before you ever get going, or during the first few minutes to hours of the tournament you're fishing. You're not necessarily, maybe that way that you were thinking about talking about would be the best thing since sliced bread, but you're not supposed to do it, for one thing, because it's supposed to be the pro's idea. So the best thing, like I say, is not to say anything. If you practiced for 3 weeks on that body of water and catching fish, those ideas stay in your head and don't pollute the pro's head, because that wasn't the pro's idea. Some pros, they'll almost pump you for information, and that's not the right thing to do. And then if you go fishing with somebody, then the next day you got to keep those ideas that you probably had maybe the most fantastic day of your life fishing in Johnny Joe's boat. Now you're going into Sammy's boat tomorrow, and you're going, oh man, I hope he's fishing with a number 9 Shad Rap, and he's putting a clip-on weight, and he's using some church boards. And you get in there and you're jigging, and right over there, 200 yards, you could catch your limit by trolling Shad Raps through there with planer boards in about a half hour, and you're jigging and you're catching one once in a while at best, and you got to sit there with your mouth full of knowledge, and you can't say a word. So it's being a co-angler isn't that easy, because you are at the beck and call of that pro. He says, this is what we're going to do, this is what you're going to do. You're not going to sit there and argue with them and say, no, I think we should do this. No, because you could get in trouble for, saying we should do this. Well, if you were on the boat today and you guys have fished together all day long and it's getting towards the end, and if you see something that you guys have learned together, now you can start, hey, if he asks you, geez, what do you think? Or you go, man, can we go fish jigs again across that rock pile? Because now trolling, we've only caught one, but man, we caught 4 or 5 earlier in the day. What do you think? And the pro might go, yeah, we did that. Let's go try that. And so them are the things that a co-angler, and then if you do that each and every time you're a co-angler, you're going to learn more from that pro, because each pro is a little different from another one. Even how he does a certain method, it's not going to be exactly the same as the other one. So you take a little bit of knowledge from each and every pro you have, and you get better at it, and better at decision making, better at using the methods, better in how long to do it, and where you should apply those methods to different types of structure or bodies of water. So by getting along with the pro and doing what he asks, you're going to realize that you're not only the pro might even do better if he knows you're not critiquing him and pushing things onto him, but you're going to end up doing better. So that's what I can say about a co-angler and the expectations and how to conduct yourself in the boat with a pro. And then when the year's over with, you go, man, I learned a lot. I think I want to become a pro now, because you didn't say anything all year long and use your own ideas. You let the pro use, each pro you fished with use their own ideas, and so you might have disagreed with every method at every time you used them during the year, but you went ahead and did it without cracking a remark or anything, and you just, whatever so said, you did. You acted like a robot. You did what was told. But now when you got done, you go, man, I got the confidence now that some of my ways that I fish, I do pretty darn good. You got the confidence now. And man, I did learn a little bit more about jig fish than I thought. I thought I knew a lot about it, but now I know a lot more than I did before. And trolling, man, I know a lot more about that just because you kept your mouth shut. And now, being a co-angler, you want to be a pro someday, and that's how you become a pro, by listening, not by talking.
Well, and the neat thing about this is, from a person that's not the pro, being me,
mm-hmm.
I can look out there and fish all 3 of the stops on the Michigan Walleye Tour for about $1,000
right
in entrance fees,
right.
which is what you would generally spend on maybe a week-long fishing trip somewhere by yourself.
Yeah. Right.
And I don't have to provide the boat. I don't have to provide the gear. All I got to do is get 3 days of fishing in a tournament, or 2 days, 3 days.
2 days. Yeah.
2 days of one-on-one guided fishing knowledge from pros.
Right.
What a deal.
Yeah, exactly. And so why would you spend any kind of money and get in the boat and think you're going to teach the pro?
Right. And on top of that, I can win money as a co-angler as well.
Right. You can win money as a co-angler. Yeah, exactly.
So,
it's a no-brainer to me. I wasn't offered that kind of competition when I started. There wasn't no such thing as that. You were immediately thrust into the spotlight as a pro. You were always a pro. You didn't have a farm league to come up as a co-angler. When you went and fished a tournament, you entered in your own boat. You entered with maybe a friend if it was a team tournament, or you were the pro and you got a co-angler along. In fact, when we first started, even the professional walleye trail, it was pro against pro. So when they drew. So there might have been 150 pro boats to start with. Okay, each and every one of them had their own boat. And the tournament started, and your names went into the hat, and 2 names were drawn out, you and somebody else. Well, you fished together, but you fished your fish that you caught stayed in this part of the live well, and the fish that they caught stayed in this part of the live well. You helped each other get your limit and net them, but you were actually in the same boat fishing against each other.
And how does that
work?
How it's. Oh, I'm sorry.
Not very good.
I was going to say with the Michigan Walleye Tour, is it the best 5 fish in the boat now, or?
Yeah, you can call because it's Michigan. Some states don't allow it. So if you're a co-angler and you're out in, say Wisconsin, every fish you catch that you put in the live well does not come back out.
Oh,
so
okay.
you could be done relatively fast if you put 5 in the live well right away. You're done. Where in Michigan, so you got to adhere to all the rules and regulations of every state, whether it's how many rods or how many fish you can have and the size limits of all the fish. And then they may put stipulations on different tournaments of if you got live fish or dead fish. So if you got dead fish, you might get a huge penalty. If you got live fish, you get there's no bonus, but you didn't lose anything, So, and then in some tournaments now, like the AIM circuit, you have just measurements, so you never keep any fish in the boat.
Oh, okay.
And you throw them right back in. So I fished the AIM circuit for I don't know how many years that was. We started, it was right after the professional walleye trail. It took the place of the professional walleye trail. And we knew because it was all pros, we knew the pitfalls, and we developed a system that's still up and running today in of many states, where you take a picture on a judge bump board a certain way and hold it up, and then you just record the measurement of that fish and throw it back in. You could catch it again later.
Oh.
And if you want to record it again, you just, if you can tell the difference, but by taking pictures of it and clicking it off on a golf card, they know which pictures to look at on the computer, and automatically those pictures you chose go right into a database of like fingerprints, so they can see if you have a duplication of that fish in your 5 fish.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so now if you got a duplication of that same fish in your 5 fish, they might call you up on the carpet for that.
Sure.
And of course, there's always a reason. They'll separate you and your pro or co-angler, and you go up there and they ask you, and then they have your partner come up separate, and they find out that, well, geez, yeah, he caught the fish, in 2 hours apart. It even shows it in the picture that the time isn't right. So we know he didn't keep it in the boat, and they both came up with the same stories. So, and then sometimes I realized it because one had a scar on it, sometimes that I would catch it again. Maybe not the same day, sometimes it was the next day. Because you didn't keep that fish and take it 20 miles back to the weigh-in, that fish is always right there.
Right.
And so you catch that fish today, 2 hours later in the same day, if that fish is still high, if you caught it, put it on the measure board, held it up, put it back in the water, and you didn't freak it out too much, and it's still hot to trot to bite, nothing saying you can't catch it again in 2 hours or less.
That would be interesting to catch them again and again. That's a fish that wants to go into the fryer, if you ask me.
Right, exactly. And being in the AIM tournament, you just got to keep throwing them back and take pictures of them. I remember the first time we came up with that, and they sent us to Canada. Daryl Christensen measured a 7, which was a 20. I think it was a 27-incher, 7 times in 3 days.
Oh,
the
wow.
same fish, but he fished the same bridge abutment all 3 days. And that fish never left, and he caught it sometimes 2-3 times a day, sometimes twice a day, sometimes only once, But he caught that fish every day, and then people are thinking, oh, geez, oh, Pete. They finally went and started filming them and got them on film catching it 2 times. It was, anything's possible when you're fishing. When you're letting fish go, people think, oh, you're not going to catch that fish again, or it gets off the line and breaks the line, or it just gets off, period. They don't have a clue what happened. They'll turn around, grab the next thing right by them.
Have you ever caught a fish that's got dangling line or anything out of it?
Oh, yeah. Lots of times. I caught them with my own lure out of it. It's happened so many times. But no, I've fished, for this many years, with this many circuits, doing so many different rules and regulations. I think the best rules and regulations, the ones that are least invasive, is the AIM circuit, where you catch a fish, you measure it, take a picture, it goes back in all within less than a minute, and that fish goes right back to eating, and in the same place where if you take them from one place, put them in your live well, beat them up across 3-foot waves for 20 miles, and then they try to let them go again, it don't always work. And plus, now you let them go out of the picnic table you were just sitting at and sitting you out in the Sahara Desert, because now just because it's water and they can live and breathe doesn't mean that they're going to find fish fast or food fast enough that they aren't going to starve anyhow.
Yeah, that's actually a neat way to keep your fishery going, is by just doing the catch and release with the pictures. Right,
and the next day I'd go back to my spot, and I know all the fish that I caught yesterday are still here today. So there's no, I know I'm not taking them 20 miles away and releasing them 20 miles away. So there's no attrition here.
It keeps that population from getting just decimated with tournament anglers keeping the fish, and allows it to be a productive fishery for years and years and years.
Right. And the people that live on the bodies of water around that area, they come up, they love it because they see you catching the fish which they don't like, but they see you throwing it back in and they're like, yeah, cool. What are you doing that for? They know you're tournament fishing. They go like, well, why didn't you keep that one? Well, I did. It's on the card right here. It's on this camera right here.
Yeah.
Really.
And where's that AIM tournament at? Where's that run
It's
through?
in North and South Dakota, Wisconsin, and Minnesota right now. It was in Michigan for 1 year, but for some reason it didn't click on as well. Not saying they won't bring it back, but your live well now becomes dry storage.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, now I want to kind of switch gears here for a bit, Mark, and talk about stuff that you do outside of the fishing tournaments.
Yeah.
You have a website. It's markmartins.net. And people can head over there to read articles that you've written, listen to other shows you've been on, watch videos, but you also have books and videos that are for sale. Now, I got the Year-Round Walleyes from you a number of years ago, and that's a great book with your buddy Gary Roach doing the foreword of it. But you've got How to Fish for Walleyes at Night, a video on that, and then a book on pro walleye tactics. So if people really want to learn from you, besides just listening to shows like this and listening to Mike Avery's show where you make a number of appearances, you've got the materials there for them to pick your brain, so to speak.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they can go to the website and they can order off the website with PayPal, and they'll get to me and I'll autograph it for them and get it sent out, whether it's a DVD or whether it's a book, and there's a variety of different. They can go to my Facebook sites, and look up Mark Martin, or they can go to Mark Martin Fishing and like it, and they're going to see stuff I just did this weekend with the lake trout. They can look back years and see a lot of the walleye. They can see the ice fishing schools that I do, the open water schools that I do. They can, on Facebook there, how far do you want to keep scrolling back is you're going to see what's been done over the years and catch up on some of that stuff. It's all informative. It's all educational, and timely. If you go back at the same time of year as it is right now, last year, the year before, the fish are going to be in the same bodies of water doing the same thing that I'm talking about in the Facebook stuff, and they also are going to be on the Mark Martins, and you got on my webpage, it's Mark Martins with an S. .net, and they look that up there. But Facebook, they can start right there and look up a lot of stuff right there, ask a lot of questions of me, and then you can go to, Google my name, Mark Martin Walleye, and you can get to my fishing vacation schools, and you can look up my phone numbers, you can look up my when the classes are, you can look up how to buy books and videos.
And in the show notes of this, I'm going to have links to your websites, your Facebook pages, everything that's related, so the listeners will be able to jump right out there. And what I want to talk about, Mark, and you brought it up, is, okay, so I've gone out and I've co-angled maybe a couple of tournaments, soaked up some knowledge, but as anybody knows, Michigan is also covered with snow and ice for a big number of the years. Yeah. And you do both, in this case, an ice fishing school and how to catch walleye through the ice, and I'm sure anything else that bites, as well as you do a summer school on fishing walleye on, is it Lake Michigan or is it inland lakes that you do that school?
Well, we this year we did only one because of time constraints. Was on the Saginaw River in Saginaw Bay, and it was a mini camp of one day, and I incorporated it with the DNR, and we had like 28 people sign up for like 1 day of classroom education and equipment, and have them bring their own equipment, get that rigged up correctly for them, and listen to 7, 8 pros that had the knowledge, and over the course of the one day, everybody did a seminar, everybody talked about different techniques, and then the next day, everybody was allowed to bring one rod onto every boat, and we drew for pros, to students, and each boat got, 3 to 4 students in it, and they all got to fish with their rod the way they wanted to fish for 1 hour. And a lot of things that we did out there, pretty soon they wanted, okay, we'll use your equipment because we see this is going to really work good today. Trolling lead core really caught a lot of fish, and some guys didn't bring lead core, and then they wish they did because now it turned into a free-for-all lead core bite. So they learned what's happening at that time, but we go through all the methods, and we catch fish on every method, but one method would usually stand out as being superior. So we did one open water school this year in Saginaw. We'll probably do 1 or 2 next year. And then we're, ice fishing school. They can look that up on, the Fishing Vacation School website, and they'll see all the dates and times. And we teach them how to catch walleye through the ice, but at the same time, you can't keep the brown trout, rainbow trout, the sturgeon, the pike, the muskie, the burbot, the sunfish, the bluegill, the crappie. They're all going to come in. Once we teach you how to attract the fish in, it attracts fish in. It don't just attract walleyes. So get ready to catch fish in the wintertime, and we teach you how to use your GPS, how to use your Navionics, how to use your fish finder, how to use everything that you spent all this good money on all these years, how to use it better than you have been using it to get your money out of it, how to walk in a bait shop and choose the right lures off the wall instead of letting the salesman choose them for you. And maybe you can teach the salesman or the owner more about what he has on the wall after you fish a school, because you're going to have more knowledge than most of those salespeople do when you, after one of the camps that you come and fish in these schools, you're going to have a lot of knowledge. You're getting knowledge of, like an ice fishing school. You got over a few, 400 years with all the, or maybe more than that, of knowledge from all these pro staff. And if you take advantage of not just me, but every pro staff that's there, you're going to walk away with so much knowledge and look at so much equipment, not just Lowrances like I use. There could be Hummingbirds and Vexillars and, Garmins and, everything's there. But we teach you, each pro knows maybe more about one certain thing than another. And we teach you how to use your equipment, or, oh man, I really want to get one of these Lowrances now that I've seen one. Well, then we teach you which one you probably should be looking at for your capabilities. And wow, I better, download on my phone these Navionics. And we make sure that's a requirement in our schools, is everybody downloads a Navionics app, so that when we talk or anybody talks in the school, they know where John's point is.
Okay.
They got their own textbook in their hand. So when we're going over things, when we're talking about the river channel, we're talking about the rock pile out in Saginaw, everybody knows where it is because they brought it up on their cell phone and can see it. So now we talk about it. We just, attacked it. All of us did. And some people caught them doing this, and this, and now everybody knows where everybody's talking about. Or maybe this guy fished over here off a point, and he talks about what they did over there. Well, everybody knows what point it is. But if you didn't have Navionic apps on your phone and somebody brought that up, what point? Well, where was that rock pile? But when you can pinpoint everything, and the nice thing about having Navionic apps, not only for us to have a textbook in everybody's hands when we're going through classroom discussions, is when we're out on the body of water and you have your own boat, you have your own snowmobile, four-wheeler for the ice, you ask us, well, where should we go? and we'll pull out your smartphone, bring up the Navionics apps, and go, well, we're here right now, and those guys are catching fish over there, and see that inside turn right there where they're sitting. Well, yeah, on the map you can see it, but looking at their shanties visually, you don't see that. Well, now you know what they're fishing. Go over on the other side of that point. See the other little indentation, just like they're fishing here? Go over there. And now they just get on their little four-wheeler or snowmobile, got their smartphone in their hand, drive right over to that other little nookie on the other side of the point that looks just like where those other guys are drill holes. I'll be there in 45 minutes, see how you're doing. If you start doing something before I get there, call me.
Oh, awesome. All right, so let's look at this. So could you talk a little bit about the boats and what somebody would look for maybe on their first walleye fishing boat?
Well, what they want on their first walleye fishing boat, now that they've fished a few tournaments, have a few years under their belt, and they've narrowed it down to say a Lund, something that, now they got to decide, well, do I want a glass Lund? Because now they have glass Lunds, which are phenomenal. Or do I want an aluminum Lund, which has been around forever and ever? Some people say, well, glass is better than aluminum because there's rivets and rivets will fall out. Well, hey, that is not a factor in there. A lot of things can happen to a lot of different boats. And I personally, because I run a big Lund, and if you choose apples to apples, size to size, some people say, well, glass rides smoother, and this, not the case. I got a lot of co-anglers that were surprised about, they're dead set on having a glass, and they get into my Lund, and it's aluminum, and they go, oh, this is a glass Lund, huh? I'm going, no, it's an aluminum. Really? It's riding pretty smooth and quiet and cuts through the waves. And yeah. I said, no, this is aluminum. Tap on the side, look at the rivet. Oh my gosh, it is. Well, that just pops their bubble that everybody else has instilled in their head that glass rides smoother and quieter. It's all personal preference. It's not, one, you're not going to get a better ride out of one boat than you are the other. Well, you're going to get a better ride out of a bigger boat than you are a smaller one of the same kind. So you got to decide how big do you want to get in order to get that comfort level there. And the person driving the boat is the biggest concern over your comfort level. Maybe the guy knows how to drive it and trim it. You're going to have the best ride in that same boat, or this guy that just bought this boat because he thought it was cool, and he just hammers her right down because it's a Sherman tank, he thinks, and you start glancing off across the 5-foot waves at 45 miles an hour. That same boat that you were just in love with, you're going to hate because now he's driving it out of control. Yeah, it's going to work. It's going to drive, but it's out of control. And somebody's going to get hurt in it, and you got to learn how to drive each boat. So not only just getting a boat, what's your personal preference? Lund has glass and Lund has aluminum. You got to make that decision, but remember, either or is the same size boat, rides the same as the other one. One might be just the only weight difference. And if anybody tells you that their boat is dry, they must have a rain jacket on or rain pants. Because I only dry boats I know are cabin cruisers when they keep the windows and doors shut.
Very true.
Otherwise, they can tell you that stuff. It must be a selling point they've used since boats ever came on the market that our boat's dry. Well, it just ain't true. It depends on who's driving it, how they're driving it, and what weather are you in driving it. So I tell people what they really need too is, what electronics, get them set up right. Your rod holders, they need to be at where your, fingertip level. The electronics got to be on the dash. They got to be on the bow. Your electric motors that you choose should be, heavy enough and have 12 volts for small boats, 24s for mid boats. The best ones you can get are 36 volts. They'll last a lot longer, and they have more power for a longer duration of time. So if you get a bigger boat, you should never underpower it, for one thing. Look at what the horsepower rating is on it. Same thing with your electric. Bigger boats need bigger motors, more 36 volt for 20-foot boats and even 18-foot boats. You need the power out there to work the waves that you're going to be in. Long shafts, not short shafts, for deep V's, and for most any boats, as long as that electric trolling motor stays in the water, it can go anywhere, maintain its direction. But you buy one that has a shaft popping up and out of the water, losing control, it's not going to be a real good deal. It's not going to be a very good day. But if you have underpower on your horsepower on your main combustible engine, that's another bad thing, because now you bought a boat because the price point was right and you saved $3,000. Well, now you're going to, that it's a minimal motor that can barely get you up on plane, but once you get up on plane, you got to run it wide open just to stay up on plane. And so now you wear that engine out. You use more gas than you would one that had 100 more horsepowers, because that one with 100 more horsepower jumps up out of the water, back it off to where it's just barely running. So now you're not wearing that engine out. You're not using more gas than you should be using. Now it becomes a more economical motor. By the time the summer's over, you save probably $1,000 and probably another $1,000 in wear and tear on that motor. So in the end, in 2 years, that 100 or horsepower more motor, you just got your money back. Plus, if you keep it more years, it just keeps paying you, because you're just basically, now if you got an under horsepower boat and you're always running it wide open, now a big storm comes in and you want to race the storm back, that extra 100 horse that should be on that boat gets you back before you got in the storm. The other one, you're riding the storm back.
Which, for anybody that's done that, is not enjoyable.
No.
I don't care how much you like the water, getting caught in a storm is anywhere near being enjoyable.
No, exactly.
In your freshwater class, Mark, are you going to go over all that stuff with people so that they have a kind of a checklist or so when they go out to look for a boat, that they know what they're looking at?
Well, we make sure before they even go out on the water. That's why we have classroom the first day. We look over their boat, take them to a marina if we deem necessary, and get it set up right, and get their transducers put in the right place, move their rod holders around into the right areas, move their electronics into the place where they're actually going to do them some good. Just make sure that when they do go out on Monday morning or whatever it may be for the first time, we know they're going to be able to handle the situation we're going to put them in with their own boats, because open water, they use all their own equipment except for the last day. Then we allow them to come into our boat.
Oh, okay.
For the last day, because they're intimidated by a pro's boat, because they only got a 14-foot or a 16-foot or a 17, and here you're dealing with 20-foot boats or somewhere near that. That intimidates people, and they think, oh, it's just way too much boat. Oh man! All of a sudden, they're the one driving the boat. They're the one operating it, and they realize, man, that wind really didn't blow this near that big. This is easier to run than my boat, because I'm all over the place. The waves are knocking me around. The wind's blowing me all over the place. I don't have a big enough trolling motor even. I cheaped out on that too, because I just wanted to say I had one. I cheaped out on a combustible just to get to where I wanted. If you use that analysis on a boat that you're going to buy, that you just want to get by, you're just going to get by, but you're going to be a sad participant in the sport, because you're not going to be able to enjoy that sport very much, because you're going to run out of, if you should have had a 36 volt instead of 24, your buddy with 36 volts, because the wind picked up and the waves got a little bigger, is still fishing and you're not. All of a sudden the wind picks up because he bought a long shaft electric trolling motor And because it was $50 cheaper, you got the 45-inch shaft instead of a 60-inch. You can't even keep it in the water, so you're not even fishing anyhow. There's a lot of things to think about, and we run them by each and every person, and they see how our boats are set up. So if we can't actually set them up right there on site, we'll do as much as possible. They can make notes. They can see what our boats look like and where everything is placed, make changes when they get home the right way instead of guessing and by golly in it.
They could end up, the difference in the horsepower could mean they're regulated to just fish in inland rivers and small inland lakes.
Right.
Because that's all their boat can really handle.
Right. Now you put, the number of people that boat actually can fish when it's fully horsepowered up. You don't even know them extra people are in there, underpower at once, and it's like you got oars on the thing. Can't even get out of its own wake. You'll never see up on plane.
This time has flown by, Mark. And I want to be respectful of your time as you've just gotten home. You've provided so much great information. And again, I'm going to tell everybody, hit the show notes. I'll have all of Mark's contact information. You want to fish walleye, you want to fish in general, this is the guy that'll teach you. It's been fantastic, Mark. I look forward to, we could do a whole topic just on ice fishing. There's so much information that you could glean, or the freshwater. So I tell folks, go out and get the Pro Tactics of the Walleye book. Get the year-round walleye. That one is really good, and a lot of what Mark talked about is touched upon in that book. And so that's a really good spot to start. The DVD if you want to fish at night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's excellent. I mean, that's somebody that wants to get into all this, just like you said, Jayson. I'm the guy that did it wrong. You don't need to do it wrong if you use all the information I provide. I'll short circuit that so that you go out and enjoy your time on the water instead of making yourself more miserable.
Well, there you go. Right from the pro itself, start at his website, Mark Martins with an S, MarkMartins.net. And you'll spend more time on that website than you can even imagine with the absolute amount of information that Mark's got there. And then the links to all of Mark's sponsors are just a who's who list of people you want to look at. So, Mark, again, I can't even just tell you how much I appreciate the time you've given today and the information you've given. And it was so good. I'm so used to listening to you through all the different shows and everything you've been on. And, I think Fred Trost is probably the first spot I saw you. And and then up through Mike Avery's spot. So again, I really appreciate all the time you've given today.
Hey, no problem. I try to give everybody a little piece of me, and that's all I can do. If I can touch somebody somewhere, someplace, and they're a little better for it, I've done my job.
Well, you've said it all. This has been fantastic, and again, I can't thank you enough for your time.
Well, appreciate it. And Jayson, anytime you want to do another one, you know how to get a hold of me. And to all your listeners, thanks for tuning in, and hope to see you on the water or ice.
Either one to catch the eyes.
That's right.
You take care.
You too, Jayson.
Take
care. Bye-bye.
Come early spring, it's getting green. Fish are on the bed, and hear those turkeys gobble. It's ringing in my head. The winterized bass boat, here comes another year. Yeah, we command the outdoors round here. Oh, we command the outdoors. Yeah, we command the outdoors. Come summertime, we're feeling fine, fishing on the lake, flipping jigs in Carolina rigs. from early morning till real late. Bonfires on the creek bank, kick back a couple beers. Yeah, we command the outdoors around here. Yeah, we command the outdoors. Yeah, we command the outdoors. Next year's doves until you know winter's on the way. Brushing blinds and deer stands, the fever starts to creep. Fill our freezers full of ducks, lots of tender deer. Yeah, we command the outdoors around here. Yeah, we command the outdoors. Yeah, we command the outdoors. So grab your guns and shells, boys. Put on your camouflage, 'cause we command the outdoors around here. We command the outdoors.